Welcome everyone to the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and this has been a normally when I do movie reviews, I do of sort of the big budget features of the year whenever they come out. This has been something I've wanted to do a little bit differently. I got this idea earlier this summer when I found out that that in June of 2019 was going to be the 30th anniversary of a very important film for me. I mean, it was something that I grew up watching, and that was the original. Well, I guess I shouldn't say the original Batman movie, but the movie Batman from 1989, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton. It's it's one of those movies it's become an all-time classic. You look at the current film landscape of comic book movies; they're all over the place. They're big budget. They're basically keeping Hollywood afloat right now. Let's be honest. And just, when you look at the 1989 Batman movie with Tim Burton, I mean, it's an all-time classic. I grew up loving it. I actually did go to see it in the theaters. It was one of the first movies I saw in the theaters. I was only 5 years old at the time. No, but I remember going to see this, and I mean, I didn't know a lot of what was going on. When I was 5, I didn't really know what Batman was at the time, but obviously, through subsequent viewings over the years, through owning it with VHS, and even eventually to DVD, which I still have a really cool box set of that I use to go ahead and kind of rewatch this old movie and take notes. And it's kind of a cool box set I have, and of the 4 Batman movies from the 80s and 90s, and I remember just watching it and going through the special features of the DVD and just everything that happened behind the scenes. And I also learned more from listening to Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman, which kind of inspired me to do this. It's a little bit late. As I record this, it is December 20th of 2019. So by the time you hear this, 2019 will already have been gone, I'm sure, by the time I edit it and put this out. But even though I'm a little bit late celebrating the anniversary of this, I knew that I wanted to go back and revisit this movie and do a podcast about it, breaking it down scene by scene, kind of talking about what works, what doesn't, and what holds up and what doesn't anymore. And so this has been a lot of fun for me, and I figured who better to have on this than members of my family. So without further ado, I want to introduce 2 guys who I've known for a very long time, pretty much my entire life. My 2 cousins, Jimmy and Bobby Gaspero. Guys, welcome.
Hey, what's up, Jack?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, this has been a long time coming. I know you guys are super busy, so I appreciate having you both on here doing this. And just to get a little clarification, I never, because we're not necessarily first cousins. I don't know if we're second cousins. Your mom and my mom are first cousins, so I know we share a great grandparent somewhere. But screw it, you guys are my cousins.
Yes.
I don't know if it's like once removed. I don't know the terminology behind it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like first cousins twice removed, or if you could say second or third. It gets murky.
It does.
But yes, on my mom's side and on your mom's side, we share great grandparents.
Sure. So that counts though. But no, I've known these guys my whole life. I mean, in terms of expertise on DC movies and all things DC, you guys still actively read comics, which you guys know a lot more about sort of the obscure comic book stuff than even I do. I don't really actively read anymore, but you guys know that I love these characters, and I love these movies, and whether the movies themselves are good, bad, or indifferent, I still enjoy going to see these things. And so it's really cool for me to go back and revisit this movie, which I know has been a staple of your childhood, as it has been mine.
That's why I like to talk to you about stuff, because you take it for what it is, and sometimes I get too involved with it not being exactly like the comics.
Right.
I enjoy the movie more than me. So it's good to talk to you about it to get a different perspective.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just it all comes from a good place, really. We all like these characters. We all want to see the best adaptations possible. So we're just passionate about it. But it's all comes from a positive place. So I mean, before we get started with this thing, what are some of your guys' memories about this movie? I mean, I know you guys. I mean, I don't know what you guys remember about when it came out, the time, where you guys were in 1989, obviously, and just what were some of your memories about it?
Well, I'll start. I was 10 in 1989,
Mm-hmm.
and I I remember. I'm pretty sure I saw this that we saw this in the theater. I think so.
One of the ones we stuck into?
No. I think Dad took us to see this in the theater.
Yeah.
But I was 10 years old. I remember that summer was like the summer of Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like 1989, Batman stuff was big and it was everywhere. I mean, because this was the first Batman movie, I think, since they made the quote unquote movie of the Adam West,
Right.
Burt Ward version.
Yeah, back in was it 66 or 68?
Yeah, like 66. So this was the first Batman movie, and I remember it was a big deal. It was also one of the first superhero movies. I mean, since Superman had been out, and it had been a while since Christopher Reeve Superman was out. At least one of the one or two. I mean, three and then four snuck in there in 84.
Well, yeah, it was Superman 4 came out in 87, I think.
Oh, 87? Okay.
So I think it was that late, but by that time, really sort of the wheels had fallen off of that franchise a little bit, to putting it lightly. And Christopher Reeve was done with the role. He wasn't coming back to it. Really at the time, there wasn't really a lot. I mean, certainly this movie paved the way for just the way these big budget blockbusters are released now, just with all the marketing and the tie-ins. I mean, I still remember the original toy line from back then,
right?
Which they didn't have a lot going on with the toy line, but I remember it was a big thing, and there were McDonald's tie-ins and just all kinds of things. I remember even on the original VHS they included this Diet Coke commercial that they shot for it.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't know.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I just remember Batman everywhere. I mean, if there was some type of merchandise or some type of object, or they could put Batman on it and they could sell it. It just seemed like Batman was everywhere that summer. And I remember going into it, people talking about Michael Keaton and that being kind of an odd casting for Batman.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Nicholson is the Joker. It seemed because you had big names being in a Tim Burton superhero type of film. There were a lot of that has never changed. That second guessing of casting by certain members of the fandom. But
for sure. Kevin Smith put it best. He said when they found out that Michael Keaton was playing Batman, that broke the internet before there was an internet.
Right.
People were like, "What? Mr. Mom is Batman? That's crazy."
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought of. Mr. Mom is now Batman.
Johnny Dangerously or what?
Yeah.
That was such a.
That's just what I remember. I remember Batman seemingly everywhere again. Yeah,
it was huge, and like I said, I remember my mom. I don't know if my dad took it with us, but my mom took me and my sister to see that. And by the way, you guys are Skyping in from Wilmington, Delaware, so this is a very specific reference. At the Concord Mall, there was a movie theater there for many years. I don't remember if the chain was called Eric. Remember Eric movie theaters?
Yep.
Yeah. I think there was one of those. It was a two theater little movie house connected to the Concord Mall in Wilmington, which hasn't been there in years and years. But I remember that was where we saw it.
Is that where Boscov's is now?
Yeah.
Is that where it is? I think.
Yeah, I know that. I think it was right next to the Boscov's.
You could come in and be right there.
Yeah. So that's a little local reference for anyone in the Wilmington, Delaware area who might be listening. Probably a ton of people in Florida who are like, "What are you talking about right now?"
Way to Delco the podcast, Jack.
Of course. Well, I mean that's where you guys are calling in from. I'm here in Orlando, and but yeah, so this is I forget where I was going with that. But I was going to say that 1989 in particular, I was doing a little research on this. That was just like one of the big, like craziest big, like blockbuster summers ever. Because I'm looking at like the top 10 grossing movies of 1989. Batman was number 2, right behind Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
You also had Back to the Future 2, Look Who's Talking, which weirdly was that was in the top 5. Huh.
That was a huge movie.
Huge.
Yeah, it was a big comeback for Travolta, I think.
Right.
Dead Poets Society, Lethal Weapon 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Ghostbusters 2, The Little Mermaid, and Born on the 4th of July. Not to mention like other movies like Do the Right Thing, and just like there was a ton. When Harry Met Sally, there were a ton of like classic movies that came out that year.
That was a big year. Yeah.
For sure. So it's pretty wild, and I think at the time I had heard that this was one of the most expensive one of the most expensive movies or at the time they had made. I think the budget was $35 million, which doesn't seem like a lot now, but I mean even in '89 that was still probably a lot, and who knows how much in marketing, because they really got some marketing out of this thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it was everywhere. I think one of the hardest things to do, I was thinking about watching this movie, is because I probably hadn't seen it all the way through since 1989.
Really?
I've watched parts of it. I don't know and I've seen it, different things, and stopped and start and on TV. But I don't know if I actually sat down to watch it from beginning to end since. Well, maybe shortly after 1989, maybe like when we first had it on VHS or something, but it had been a long time. And one of the things I tried to do for this was to not think about not think about any other Batman or Batman in any other type of media, like not think about the Adam West, or thinking about another, like a comic book run, or thinking about another movie or another actor that played Batman, or the Chris Nolan films, or Ben Affleck. Like, to just think, I'm looking at this movie on its own, and it's hard to do. I mean, because I feel like Batman was one of those characters that, like, I knew about Batman before I knew about, historical figures, or I knew about other things. Like Batman, just even though this movie hadn't been out yet, but because of comic books and because like our dad was a fan of the Adam West show, like Batman was always around in some iteration. So it's hard to try and sit down and watch a movie and like clear your head of any other preconceived notions of what Batman should be, or what I want Batman to be, or who I think Batman is.
Well, don't you just look at it to see if it's a movie that can hold up, like you can watch it, sit through, and not pick it apart, just as a movie?
Yeah, that's what I try to do, but I think it's hard to do when you've kind of always, in some way or another, like lived with this character, or had an action figure and played with this character. I think can be tough to do, but that's what I try to do.
Okay, different than if you show someone now the original Star Wars, where they just take it as like a movie that they pick apart, and the CG and stuff that goes on it. Like you're just looking at it as...
I'm just looking at it as a single film, that this is the only thing that exists. I'm sitting down, brand new, clean slate. This is Batman. What does that mean? What is it?
That's an interesting approach. And I mean, I'm also like, what was fascinating to me is just, learning about even the history of how this thing got made. Like, I think it was first optioned, like they were looking to make a Batman movie since the late 70s, at least. I think it was John Peters was one of the producers, and if you're a Kevin Smith fan, you know all about John Peters. Google Kevin Smith and Superman Returns, and you'll find out about John Peters. He was the guy who produced Caddyshack and a few other movies as well. He's definitely a character for sure. Certainly, I mean, since the popularity of Superman, which came out in 1978, I know that was something they were trying to get made. I'm surprised it took them as long as it did for this movie to get made. I think there were just so many different cooks in the kitchen, and there were several scripts, making the rounds for years. Like there was one in '83, I guess written by a guy named Tom Mankiewicz. That didn't get work. That for whatever reason that didn't happen. The script they ended up going with was from two guys named Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron. Weirdly enough,
Right.
two guys. What are the odds that they have two screenwriters whose names rhyme? So that's kind of weird.
Right. Well, Sam Hamm, I was just reading about him recently. His name came up because in I guess I don't know if it was the early 2000s or it could have been earlier than that, but Sam Hamm did a Watchmen script, and somebody was just talking about it before Zack Snyder's film. Before the Zack Snyder film in 09. But Sam Hamm had done a Watchmen script that they were trying to make, and I think someone had done some test footage of it, but it never went anywhere. And it was just making its rounds recently, with the because of the HBO TV show about Watchmen.
Wow. So the script he had did he say when that was written or when that got out?
I thought it was like the early 2000s. So maybe, 6-7 years or more before Zack Snyder did his version of Watchmen.
Gotcha. It's but it's just interesting that they got Tim Burton of all people. I mean, Tim Burton wasn't necessarily a comic book fan, but I think because they were very much influenced by The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns, which were relatively new comic book stories at the time. So the influence is definitely there as I went through, and you could kind of see definitely certain the influence as the movie goes along. They have references to things like Corto Maltese, which is something from The Dark Knight Returns, and even the Joker's origin in this is kind of similar to what happened in The Killing Joke. So, but yeah, no, it's just interesting. I definitely recommend it. Anyone listening, if you get the chance to go and look at that documentary of how this got made, that's as interesting as anything else about this movie. I mean, not to bash the movie or anything. I'm just saying it's always I personally find it interesting how these things get made sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do too. Like how it all comes together. I
also wonder, did they nitpick back then the actors and different things like percentages from here on out? So anytime it's on TV, do they still reap any kind of benefit from it or anything that gets marketed for all the years that have passed? Or was it just a one-time fee? Here it is for doing the movie, and then that's it.
That's a good question. I know Nicholson got paid for this, dude. He
really?
Cleaned up.
I bet most of the budget was Nicholson's salary.
But look, I mean, I don't know if this movie works as well without Nicholson as Joker. I mean, his casting was just a stroke of genius. He was amazing.
The one thing, what we were just saying reminded me of two things. One was they must have used up all the money for Nicholson's salary and some of the effects, because the very opening of this movie, I was surprised at how simple the opening credits were, which is the simple yellow block lettering. Yeah. It was I was at first I thought I put in the wrong DVD. I was like, wait, is this is how Batman started?
Right.
This is. But the other thing was, one of the things I want to talk about once we get into it with Nicholson is I think Nicholson as Jack Napier is great. I think Nicholson as the Joker, also great.
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily have to do with Nicholson himself or even his performance, maybe more in the writing or directing. Watching it this time, I was struck most by, I don't see how the character of Napier becomes the Joker. I think Nicholson gives a great performance as Napier. He gives a great performance as Joker. I think both characters are well written. I don't don't think there's a good through line between how a Napier, even after his accident, becomes the Joker. But we'll get into it more.
I definitely want to explore that as things go on. I do know that like there were certain like rewrites to the script that Sam Hamm and Warren Scarn had, and I think a lot of that was done as it was filming. Certainly the way the movie ended, like you could kind of tell, it's like, okay, they were trying to figure out how to wrap this up, and that's kind of why it ended the way it did. But getting to your point, let's just get into the movie itself. We've kind of built this up quite a bit. So like you said, the opening title, it's very simple, like very kind of low resolution, but it is interesting because it's this slow, like panning shot of what ends up being the bat symbol, but it's just like in stone. Right. But it's done very mysteriously. It's kind of interesting. But you hear that. That iconic score from Danny Elfman, which I think that was probably Burton's call to bring in Danny Elfman because he worked with Danny Elfman before on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I think did Danny Elfman do Beetlejuice as well?
I think so.
I mean, I think that's how Keaton gets this gig because he worked with Tim Burton before. I don't know if it was like Tim Burton who cast or had a hand in that, but. I mean, I'm sure it didn't hurt that those guys had worked together before. So, but yeah, I mean, to this day, like that Batman theme that Danny Elfman did is just it's iconic. It's probably the thing most of all that people associate with Batman is that line. Da, 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 da. You know, it's so memorable, and that very much holds up to this day.
Yeah, I like the score of this. I mean, I like the score of the whole thing.
And the one thing I noticed, when we finally got to that, to the exterior shots of Gotham City, which, by the way, those like wide exterior shots of Gotham City, it clearly looked like an oil painting. Like, yeah, like 100% that was what that was, and just even the design of Gotham City looked very surreal. Like it didn't really look like any particular city that is, so it's, and depending on what you look for in these kind of movies, I kind of like what Chris Nolan did, where it's like it very much had a very realistic aesthetic to it, like it was shot in Chicago as opposed to being on sets. I mean, look, this was a particular take that they had. Even like the set and the fashion, there was an interesting, just aesthetic to it. You didn't really know what time this took place. The fashion seemed to sort of have this 1940s, 1950s vibe as opposed to 1989, which I guess kind of made it timeless in a way, but it also is just, it also had this very surreal quality to it. But, it's an interesting choice. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
That's the first thing I have in my notes is the design of Gotham City is pretty great. I love how Gotham's designed. And then, the second thing I put down that I noticed was the cars look modern, but the people are dressed like it's the 1950s. So I thought that was an interesting choice, that the clothing styles were very much from like the late 40s or the early 50s, but it's all 1980s cars. And I thought the design of the city was good. It was like that, New York-ish in the 70s, 80s, where it looked grimy, it looked gritty. And there were times where, as contrasted with, Christopher Nolan's Batman, where this one did look like a set. It didn't look like they were in an actual city. It looked like they were on a lot somewhere for quite a bit of it. But like when they did do the wide shots, I thought the design of the city looked pretty cool. I thought it looked like its own thing. It didn't look like they were just kind of aping New York. It looked like Gotham City.
Yeah, no, it definitely, I mean, Anton Furst was the designer for it. It definitely gave sort of the city itself, kind of made that a character in the movie, which was an interesting choice to it. And by the way, I forgot to mention Prince did the soundtrack to this thing, which that was a huge hit that year as well. So that was sort of a tie-in. I don't know what the story was with that. I feel like Prince might have been contractually obligated to do this, from Warner Brothers. That was part of his deal. I don't know if that led to him leaving the label years later or whatever, but that was a whole thing. Yeah, Prince fans will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that was a huge soundtrack as well. But yeah, Prince did all the music for it, and yeah. So we open on this just sort of. It was kind of a weird start to the movie. We kind of focus on this random family who's in there, and they're just kind of walking around, and eventually they kind of go into this alley and get approached by muggers. Now I remember when I was little, I would watch this part and I'd be confused. I'm like, wait a minute, are they supposed to be Batman and his parents? But then I realized, like, no, they're not. That's not a young Bruce Wayne or Thomas and Martha. They're just sort of this random family where, but I mean, again, they were doing this to kind of drive home, like you said, Jimmy, how Gotham was just a dangerous place to live and how it just crime infested, and sort of gave Batman sort of this otherworldly quality. We kind of had this point. They focused on like people, these criminals sort of talking about Batman, like it's like, man, did you hear what happened to Johnny Gobbs? I heard the bat got him, and this and that, and they were arguing whether it was real, but Batman instantly goes in there, and weirdly enough, he accosts these two robbers. He didn't do it while they were mugging this poor couple.
Yeah. They were just hanging out, I think, on a rooftop.
Yeah, like they had already committed the crime.
Yeah, right. Going through the purse.
I do like the mythic nature of it. Like, he was caught by the bat, or there's no such thing as the bat. There's this, and of course they get right into. I mean, I like the parallel, and I've seen comic book writers, and I've seen that before. The idea of the family in the alley getting attacked, similar to the Waynes, and Batman coming in to stop it, or to or getting the criminals after the fact, as it happens here. But they get into it pretty quickly. Although there have been other Batman stories where he takes on villains that seem, I guess, more powerful than him, or a group of people. It was interesting, I thought, to start. I mean, he's beating the crap out of what seems like two homeless, like, drug addicts. Like, it is clearly not. It is not a fair fight.
No, and you would think, like, the way they shot it, it looked like he was watching them as they mugged these people. You would think him of all people would be like, no, not again, mother effer. You would think he would just like spring into action, but like he didn't actually stop crime. Like, I don't think he gave those people their money back.
He just wants.
Yeah, you just like tell your friends about me.
Yeah, but I mean that idea of it. So it's to me it sets it up as and again it's difficult to try and separate all the different versions of Batman out there, but it's clear we're setting up the type of strike fear into criminals Batman. So not necessarily the world's greatest detective Batman, but to me this is the classic strike fear into criminals, mythic nature, does the bat really exist, type of character. And and of course we quickly get right into that line, I'm Batman, which I pretty much was like, that's all anybody said. Nobody said hi anymore in the summer of 1989. You just saw somebody and you were like, I'm Batman. And then they went back to you. They're like, I'm Batman.
Yeah. It was a classic moment. I mean, Keaton just nailed that delivery. He was really great with it. So yeah, then you cut to this press conference with Harvey Dent, played by Billy D. Williams.
The only Harvey Dent I will.
Right, yeah. Which was an interesting casting choice. Like, he must have been pissed when they ended up recasting him with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes. And then after the movie was finished, Tommy Lee Jones was pissed.
Right.
They didn't let Billy D go.
Well, a gig's a gig. So That would have been interesting to have a Billy D. Williams Two-Face. Like, what would that have been like?
Somewhere there's another timeline where the three of us are talking about that
No,
right now.
there's a parallel Earth,
Yeah.
obviously, in the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a deep cut DC reference. You know the funny thing is, Billy D. Williams a couple years ago did get to voice Two-Face in the Lego Batman movie.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
So like that's such a little
fun.
like Easter egg. He's like, ha, got to do it finally. But that's also an interesting, like, what would that have looked like visually? Because I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, Two-Face. I mean, there hasn't been an African American actor who's done Two-Face. I feel like you'd have to. It feels like kind of.
Yeah, Tim Burton made it real bloody. You know what I mean? I think he would have just focused on skin removal.
Well, I mean, it
kind of
just
thing
depends, like
versus color distortion.
I mean, Tommy Lee. I mean, you look at how it was done for the Chris Nolan films, and the actor's name just went right out of my. Aaron Eckhart, yeah, I almost said Tom Jane, but they just look alike a little. Yeah, Aaron Eckhart. I mean, he was, totally scarred, makeup done, and but
Sorry.
Tommy Lee Jones was very
It was
like
purple. Yeah.
purple, right? It was like
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah,
comic
none of it made
booky,
any sense.
so- No, no. Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see Billy D do something like that, but yeah, I noticed one of the things when we first get into this, like just after this scene, is like there's a lot of very interesting, strange camera angles that they're using in like the beginning of this film. Like there's a lot of camera angles that just seem to be like off kilter,
Yeah.
like slightly askew.
Or someone standing holding the camera.
Yeah, I don't know.
Instead of a tripod.
I don't know if it's to just like put the audience like so you're not at ease, but I feel like it goes away like throughout the film.
Yeah.
Like it gets less and less. But in the beginning there's just a couple of very like odd shots and odd camera angles. Like even the one with the criminals, or like from the very beginning, you're looking almost like straight up at Batman at one point, I think. I thought that was odd because it was very unsettling.
For sure, and they even established right away that his Batman's armor was bulletproof, which was kind of a cool touch to it, and definitely gave him this otherworldly quality from the point of view of the criminals. But
Right.
yeah, like I mentioned, we have this press conference, with the mayor and with Harvey Dent, the district attorney, and apparently it's on TV, and it's being watched by Jack Napier. We're introduced to him with who's there. Apparently has this affair with. He's like sort of the underboss to this mafia guy, Carl Grissom, played by Jack Palance, and apparently Napier is having some sort of affair with Grissom's girlfriend Alicia, who's played by Jerry Hall, I think former wife of Mick Jagger at one point. Very like tall, like statuesque blonde woman. I think she was a model before she was an actress or whatever. But it was interesting. It's sort of a pre-Harley Quinn before there was a Harley Quinn. So she kind of filled sort of that role in a way. And then as it goes on, we're slowly introduced to some of these other characters like Lieutenant Eckhart, who, by the way, was played by the guy who played Porkins in Star Wars.
Was it really? That's funny. I did not know that. He reminded me very much of Harvey Bullock from the comics. I mean, Harvey Bullock's not a bad guy, not duplicitous or whatever, but his look was very, the cigar.
Yeah, he was a very
and
grizzled detective.
Very, like, classic how Harvey Bullock is typically drawn in the comics from, like, the late 80s
There were also
maybe
elements of, there was a character in the comics, especially in, like, later on in, like, Batman Year One, there was a character named Detective Flass who's a crooked cop, and I think we saw that character in Batman Begins as well. So he was sort of a mixture of those two characters. And then we get introduced to Alexander Knox, played by Robert Wall, who is sort of the comic relief. I mean, I guess it's interesting because without him we don't meet Vicky Vale, but like, really, Knox really doesn't do much to further the plot. He's just kind of in this movie, doesn't really serve much of a purpose.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the
Crisis on it?
CW crossover yet?
Yeah,
the Crisis
and
yet?
he showed up, sort of reprising the role, and I saw him do an interview thing with Kevin Smith about it, and it was cool to see him back,
What was he Earth, like, wasn't it Earth 89?
Something like that, yeah.
I thought because Batman 89, I thought they said he was from like Earth 89, and it was him holding the paper.
Yeah, so that was a fun little cameo in the.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean he was kind of a funny guy. I wouldn't say he was hilarious, but I mean I don't really know what Robert Wall has done besides this. I mean there was this show on HBO, R-List, during the 90s.
R-List. Yeah.
I'm not sure what else he's known for, but yeah, again, wasn't like he's just one of those guys. He's kind of through the plot of the movie, doesn't really add or take away from anything. He's just kind of there, but it's all good, Yeah, we meet. We go to the sort of the meeting of the mob bosses. You have Jack Palance as Carl Grissom, and it's interesting because Grissom and Napier, they're basically Jack Palance and Jack Nicholson just being themselves.
Yeah, I think it's in that scene then where Napier's in like a purple suit, kind of foreshadowing the Joker.
Yeah.
I like he had on. Again, the clothing choices were odd because it did seem more. It almost seemed like if they would have shot it in black and white, it could have been more of like a noir style film, not, a comic book film, which I think is odd because I think the tone changes later and it's definitely not a noir. It's definitely like a comic book film, but the mob elements, were interesting. It almost seems like it could have been part of another movie.
For sure. I would love to see this movie in black and white. That'd be wild to watch that. I feel like someone somewhere has made that. So Vicky Vale, she's a photojournalist, and I think she was in the comics as well. Like I think Vicky Vale, that was a character in the comics. She was a love interest. I don't know why they really went with her, but yeah, she was good in the role, and she somehow gets an invite to Bruce Wayne's party, and brings Knox along with her. I think she was like. I think her story was that she was relatively new to the Gotham Gazette, I think was the newspaper, and she had taken pictures and written articles about the war in Corto Maltese, which I think that was a reference to The Dark Knight Returns.
I thought her introduction seemed odd, just from from a plot standpoint. Like she shows up talking to Knox, he's hitting on her, and finds out why she's there. And she says something about she's, interested in bats. And because Knox is set up as somebody who is chasing down this Batman story, and everybody thinks it's a joke. And Vale is there because she wants to know more about it. But it to me, from just a plot standpoint, it didn't seem to make sense, like why she's there. She seems to be a seasoned journalist who's been covering, like you said, covering the war. Like, why would she go from that to like what seems like it could be almost Pulitzer Prize winning work to Gotham City to chase down these rumors of a vigilante?
Right. We don't really know a lot about her backstory. I guess she had just moved to Gotham recently to pursue this. Maybe she was just a big fan of Knox's work, I guess, but that was sort of their way in. And somehow she got an invite to this big fundraising casino party that Bruce Wayne is throwing at his house. And I gotta say, when we get to Wayne Manor, we get introduced to Bruce Wayne. And I gotta say, Michael Keaton pulls off the aloof billionaire act pretty well. Like his Bruce Wayne isn't like over the top, like cocky or just like pretending to be drunk or anything like that. He kind of blends in, and I always wonder that anytime you have like an adaptation of Batman, it's like, okay, how famous is Bruce Wayne in this world? Because like people probably know his company, but like there are a lot of billionaires out there who aren't necessarily famous.
Well, nobody knows what he looks like, apparently. At least Vale and Knox, like Vale got invited to his party. She brings Knox along. Knox is, a reporter for the Gotham Gazette, and they don't recognize that it's Bruce Wayne.
No.
And the other thing about Keaton in this scene is he's funny.
Yeah.
Like with this opening scene when they have like a little bit of banter back and forth where he doesn't give away right away that he's Bruce Wayne and that it's his party, and then when he finds them walking around, and it takes him to finally say, about the one, I think it was like a Japanese ceremonial dress or whatever it might have been, and he says, "Well, that's where I bought it." Like, and that's when they realize who it is.
It's like, by the way, Bruce Wayne, how you doing?
Yeah, yeah. But one, he has a good sense of humor as Bruce Wayne, which I think grounds him. Sometimes you think of somebody who has $1 billion as maybe not necessarily humorless, but like, looking at modern examples, like is Bill Gates known for having a good sense of humor, or Elon Musk?
I don't know.
Warren Buffett, or
I don't know. Is Jeff Bezos a cut up at a party? I don't know.
His ex-wife does not think so.
Probably not. Yeah, she's laughing all the way to the bank right now.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
But,
I wrote this down. 18 minutes in, we see it takes 18 minutes to get to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
I thought that was the movie like chugs along for a little bit,
Yeah, it's interesting for a movie about Batman. It almost seems to focus on just Gotham as a whole. Like we get a ton of Joker time, we get a ton of like the peripheral characters, but there's always this air of mystery around Batman and Bruce Wayne,
right?
Which is interesting. Like it's definitely unique looking back on it and knowing everything we know about Batman now. It's interesting to see the approach they took with this movie. A couple things I noticed about Keaton physically. He had really distinct eyebrows. You know what I mean? Like, I know this is a weird thing to notice, but it's like I see like he had these like eyebrows. They kind of arched up there. They looked like they were like molded into the cowl somehow. I don't know if you guys ever caught that, but that was just something.
I did not.
Yeah, but and another thing I noticed, like Keaton, I think he was in pretty decent shape back then, but like he didn't seem like a big athletic guy.
He seemed fit.
Right.
But, that's the thing. The difference between 89 and 10 years later, 99, and 20 years later, 2009, were 30 years. The level of fitness is insane. Like they would never cast, I think, an actor that looks like, or they might cast it, but they wouldn't let somebody who had Michael Keaton's body type actually play Batman. I don't think. I imagine that when Robert Pattinson dons the cowl, he will look ripped.
Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani, who is on Silicon Valley and is now going to be in Marvel's Eternals, like just posted a picture where he is jacked almost beyond recognition.
Oh, for sure. It's just it's not even like it's almost comical just how in shape these guys get. Like most people do not. And again, if you're throwing that kind of money, you can afford trainers and nutritionists to be.
But nowadays with like Kumail, just because it's just recently been in the news and on the internet, like Marvel like paid, like he had a trainer, he had a nutritionist, he was in the gym all the time. Like it's almost as if the studio, and I don't know if this is the case, but it almost seems like that's what the studio like wants and expects. They want these guys to to look like this.
For
Yeah,
sure.
the most was Hugh Jackman doing Wolverine.
Yeah.
He did it over and over again, and then just
Right.
didn't want to do it anymore because I mean, that's like 0% body fat.
Oh yeah, like I mean, saying like, oh, well, what do I need to do to like? What's your secret? What do I need to do to look like that? And he goes, all right, spend thousands of dollars, hire these 5 trainers and nutritionists. Don't eat anything you like. Don't sleep 9 hours a day, run 3 miles a day, and be in the gym another 2 hours. And it's like, I don't know why not every. I think it was Rob McElhenney.
Rob McElhenney.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
It's a totally realistic lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't eat after 7 o'clock.
But it also corresponds with like the fight scenes too. I mean, could you imagine sitting down and watching like a big budget Warner Brothers Marvel movie, and your opening fight scene is that fight scene with Batman beating up those 2 guys? You'd be like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, I think he lands like a kick and 2 punches, and that's about it.
Right, and he was slow.
Right.
Like that's the other. Like Keaton seemed slow, and I didn't know if I was thinking, again, I'm like,
that thing.
yeah, is it hard to move in the suit?
Oh, for
is
sure.
Is he really this slow? Am I just that conditioned from watching modern action films that everything is supposed to happen in such like rapid cuts?
Oh, 100%. Another thing, I will say that the suit still looks great after all this time. It looks fantastic. But he can't turn his head at all.
No. No.
And it shows.
Yeah. It did look very difficult to move in. But it did. It looked great. But it also looked like he was in a cervical collar.
Right. It looked like he was in a halo, like he got in a car wreck.
I thought Vicky Vale's dress in the opening was ridiculous. At Bruce Wayne, not in the opening scene, not her opening scene, but Bruce Wayne's party. Like it looked like some of the fashion when they started to go into actual like late 80s fashion. Like no, it was like a wedding dress, wasn't it? Like didn't it look like a wedding dress?
A lot of shoulder pads. Yeah. So
go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Like that look. I mean, look, it was 1989. Like that all tracks as far as the look. So didn't have a problem with it. But yeah, no, it's 100% noticeable. Another thing I noticed later on when you finally see Bruce at the Bat computer, he was wearing glasses.
That's my next note. Bruce glasses is pretty hot.
I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with wearing glasses, but I feel like that's really one of the only depictions I've seen of Batman. Well, besides Val Kilmer wore glasses in some of the scenes in his movie, but like you don't really see that a lot, and which I guess I mean I don't know why that's a thing, why it's so noticeable. I think because Kevin Smith made a big deal out of it when he reviewed this movie, and he would end up wearing glasses for years and ended up getting actual vision problems because of it.
Jeez, I thought Keaton looked great. Just sitting there with his glasses behind all of this. I don't know if it's certainly not the Bat computer that I'm used to from the comics with all the CCTVs.
For sure.
It was like the Bat Center for mall security.
A lot of tube TVs, of course, but I mean, look, it was of the times that was what they were working with. So yeah, but yeah, like you could definitely, there was a change in his demeanor once he was there, and he definitely looked focused. I'm curious. One thing I wrote down was like, what does Axis Chemicals actually make besides toxic waste and steam?
No, I had to go back and watch the beginning again because I couldn't figure out what the bad guys' plan was, and I was like, why are they doing this? Like, what are they putting the chemicals? What are they doing again?
Apparently, from what I understood, Harvey Dent, I guess, got some sort of like search warrant for Axis Chemicals because he got like some sort of link with Grissom, and that Axis Chemicals is one of the front companies, so there was a search warrant. But like Grissom and his guys kind of knew about it, so they wanted to like stage a break-in and just kind of remove any evidence. And I guess Eckhart was the plant, and Grissom tipped off Eckhart because he knew Napier was going in there, and I guess he caught wind that Napier was sleeping around with his girlfriend and wanted the cops to kill him or arrest him, basically, just to get him out of the way.
Yeah, so the cops, I guess, and Harvey Dent and the commissioner had been trying to get Grissom for a while. They finally got I can't remember what the issue was, that they were going to go raid the chemical plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, they were setting up, Grissom was setting up Napier because of the affair, right? That's what it was?
Right.
That's what you said?
I guess.
Okay.
I mean, at that point, it's like, you're in the mob. Why not just shoot him? See.
Yeah, I guess maybe it'd be easier if he was taken out by the police, and then it wouldn't be.
I guess, yeah.
I did like my favorite part of that opening at the chemical plant was the bravest cop in Gotham City, he's all by himself, and there's 10 gangsters with guns, and he screams freeze.
Yeah, he made the most out of that freeze, man. I don't know who that actor was, but he was just like, damn it, I'm only getting a few seconds of this movie, I'm making it count.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And my other favorite, when you're in a big chemical plant trope, when all else fails, just pull all the levers.
Yes. A lot of levers. A lot of levers and steam coming out of machines that I'm not sure what that does.
I have levers at my work, and I've never seen sparks shoot out of any of the monitors anytime we throw them. But hey, it's the first time for everything. That would never happen. But.
I mean, it was watching the scene, watching that whole thing. It was like, it was fun. And I imagine when I saw it the first time when I was 10, I must have just like loved it. But watching it now at 40, it's like, wow, like the Gotham Police Department is wildly irresponsible with their shooting policy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I mean, I think that was Eckhart's deal, because he was like, no, shoot to kill. And they're just like, okay, like none of the other cops question it. And they're like, all right, I guess we're killing this dude. So.
Yeah, those were my two notes of the plant scene, and my two notes. That was one, and the other one was, this plant makes no sense.
Yeah, like, and also like there was a beat in there when like Batman kind of gets the drop on him, and Napier kind of shoots him. It ricochets off like his gauntlet, his glove, and I couldn't tell if it was like the glass that went into Napier's face or if it was like the bullet itself. But like he definitely got wounded, but I mean again with him falling in the vat of chemicals, like that's sort of like the classic Joker origin thing, for lack of a better term. And even though this is the only time where we ever get like what his real name is, I mean besides Arthur Fleck, besides the movie that came out this year, but like most of the time you never know where the Joker came from, you never knew what his real name was, so. It was kind of an interesting choice. I feel like it kind of takes away the mystery of the Joker a little bit, but at the same time, it's also like, yeah, it's kind of hard not to figure out someone's real name in this day and age,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when Nolan did it, I thought Nolan had like an interesting take on it with Heath Ledger's Joker. But I'm not somebody that's bothered by, we've never known the Joker's backstory, and if you give him a backstory, it ruins it. I mean, The Killing Joke, there was kind of a Joker backstory, I think it's somewhat ambiguous as to whether or not we're actually, if it's intended that that's supposed to be the Joker's backstory, or if it's a lie.
And even the movie this year with Joaquin Phoenix, they kind of left a lot of that ambiguous as well. Like you don't know how much he hallucinated of it and all that stuff. So, and also like, why carry a deck of cards in your hat? I guess that's his lucky deck. Like,
I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things when I mentioned earlier about Napier to Joker. Like he has the deck of cards and this, but I didn't think he was particularly like jokey. Like, he was kind of funny in a sarcastic, wise guy kind of way, but I don't think it translated into, him being a sadistic jokester now.
Right, yeah. He leaned hard into the clown theme, obviously.
I like I said.
Wise guy mom thing now, you calling me a clown? You know, it's like that same kind of
What
attitude.
do I amuse you? Funny how?
Yeah, like it starts as a joke and turns into killing. And I think he just had that kind of. I mean, you're not overly how Batman came about. Like, you're not picking a part that you didn't see Batman evolve. I think the Joker was always the Joker. He's always a crazy person in this portrayal. It just, with falling into the vat, he like.
That kind of sent him over the edge.
Exactly.
But I guess
because he was already he already wasn't a good guy. Like he, you know, that was established right away, and that he was definitely unstable a little bit.
Right, that I agree with. But like what I'm saying is, if you look at Jack Napier, the type of person he was, he falls into the acid, he goes insane because of it. The personality, just my thought was the personality that we saw from Napier. I thought we'd have somebody who would be much more sadistic. And although the Joker was certainly sadistic in this movie and cruel, it did have this over the top comic book jokey air to it. Whereas if I thought you're going to, you know, looking at Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, if you wanted to take that first and then, well, what type of person would turn into this? I think it would be more of somebody who's like, you know, almost like a failed stand-up comedian, or like somebody who is maybe not necessarily failed, but like not, you know, a particularly funny, you know, comedian, or maybe somebody that just has like a low level, you know, type of like blue collar job, but like likes to like thinks he's a lot funnier than he is. The character of Napier was like just way too, not to glorify it, but like way too cool as a bad guy to be the Joker that Nicholson played. I just think there's like a disconnect there. And I think he does a great job in both. I just think that if you start with Napier, you don't get to that type of Joker. And if you start with that type of Joker, then you don't get Napier beforehand.
Interesting. I mean, I didn't really have as many issues with the transition because, like, I already kind of got a sadistic vibe to him, and I don't know. But that's an interesting point. You know, so we go back to the newsroom, and Vicky reveals that she has a date with Bruce. Now, I don't know when Bruce had the time to ask her out. This all happened off screen, presumably. Interesting choice for their date is that they go to his house, the manor. Seems like a weird first date, don't you think? Like, hey, come over to my house and have soup. You know, why? Again, like, you're a billionaire. Like, why not take her to a fancy restaurant rather than like, that just seems like a creepy first date choice. Also, that dining room table was just comically long. Like, that was just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but this Bruce Wayne doesn't seem like the type of, you know, like Playboy style Bruce Wayne. You know, he's definitely not. If Tony Stark is the Marvel equivalent, he's definitely not. You know, a Tony Stark that we're used to seeing now in the modern age. Like, he is. I don't know. He's a good sense of humor, and he seems, you know, genuine. I did think the dinner scene was awkward. I thought they would have, if they were going to play the long table scene for laughs, it seemed to go on a little too long. Like maybe to cut that scene down a little bit. I thought it would have worked a little better. But it felt like an SNL sketch that they left to the end of the night and just let run like 3 minutes too long.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. For me, that was just kind of weird, especially if this is the first time, like, you just met. Hey, come over to my house. I mean, it's sort of the 1989 Netflix and chill, I guess. You know, maybe that's the modern day equivalent. I don't know, but
maybe he didn't go out to dinner.
I think it ended up working though. Once you get past that scene, and then, you know, they go into the next part of it. Keaton's charming, you know, and I thought Alfred was great. It was like it was a really good characterization scene where you learn something about Bruce Wayne, you learn something about his relationship with Alfred. You see Vale kind of, taking it all in. It really worked to humanize Bruce Wayne.
I agree. The scene they had with Alfred having dinner with him, I thought that was pretty sweet. Like, it got really a family vibe to it, and
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was really nice. And Michael Gough, he was a really great Alfred. I
100% agree.
He and Pat Hingle, who played Commissioner Gordon, they were the only actors to stay on through all 4 of that series of Batman films, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
Yeah, they were in all 4 of them. Returns, Forever, and Batman and Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 guys were the only ones that stuck around for all of it. But yeah, no, I agree. He was a great Alfred. Interesting. Vicky doesn't really seem to know Bruce's history all that much, and I guess maybe he kind of wanted to keep it a secret a little bit. But like, I would think that would be sort of common knowledge that Bruce Wayne, his parents got shot when he was a kid.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, it does seem odd if you had that type of backstory, if you were someone, that, well known.
Mm-hmm.
You think that would be something that would, be more, I agree, but, we're also now just so used to, with the internet and
Sure.
social media, like everything about everybody and,
Mm-hmm.
But I did think that was odd that she didn't know anything about his. But again, I thought it was odd that Knox worked for the Gotham Gazette and didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah, well, that too. And he's a local guy, we're assuming. So
right.
So then it kind of cuts to basically Vicky gets drunk and they end up sleeping together, just right off the bat.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, that would not happen in a movie made today. I'm just saying. You could not do that. Like people would be complaining about that faster than you could say Me Too. Like,
did they have sex or did she just fall asleep there?
I think it was implied that they did it.
Did it? I wasn't sure.
She even said later in the movie, she's like, "Yeah, we were having a good time. Then I slept with you. I can't believe I did that."
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
So
I wrote down in my notes that Bruce Wayne gets ladies by tiring them out walking around the manor.
Mm-hmm. He just wears them down.
That's it. That's what he does.
World's greatest detective.
Yeah.
So
I thought the Joker reveal right before then worked well.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Like, so I guess like somebody fished Napier out of the drink, and this surgeon who was doing it in this weird like back alley clinic. And I wonder how much that, like, I guess, he was trying to, like, fix him up surgically, but maybe that's what helped cause him to snap. Really? Because once he saw what he looked like, he just lost his mind.
Yeah. And never go into a place where it just has, like, surgery. Like, don't do that. Like, if there's nothing else on the signage, except like surgery. Don't go there.
But that's what they specialize in.
Lots of bloody rags around there. We're not sure whose blood it is. It might have been Napier's, might have been someone else's. I don't know. But look, that's par for the course,
Yeah.
I mean, I get the idea, like a criminal going to like some type of doctor that isn't like at a hospital or something like that. But yeah, the vet. Make it like a veterinary clinic or something. Or I mean, I don't know.
Look, Jimmy, they're the mob. They don't have time for health inspection and stuff like that. Clearly. But yeah, so they also do this weird beat where it's like, it's back in Bruce's bedroom, and Vicky wakes up and sees Bruce hanging upside down on this weird, like was he exercising there? Was he trying to get, like, do some abs or some crunches? I guess that was just such a weird moment where you saw Bruce, like, hanging upside down, like a bat.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he's a bat. What are you gonna do?
I feel like that was a John Peters note right there.
Yeah, I want to see him hanging upside down as a bat.
Right.
Like he sleeps like a bat.
Right.
John, what do you?
Because that's what bats do. So why wouldn't Batman do that? I don't know. That was just an odd thing. And
so, Vicky, what did you do this weekend? Well, I went to Gotham to cover this vigilante crime fighter, the Batman. Also, I met this billionaire, and we had sex.
Yeah,
and,
we totally banged after one night.
Sleeping, hanging upside down. The two things are not related. Are you okay, Vicky?
Like, by the way, I was drunk. He was stone cold sober, and even admitted it.
Yeah.
So that's something that happened in the movie.
That is very, very problematic for Bruce Wayne.
But yeah, so like the next day, like she kind of suspects that something's up with Bruce after one night, which, again, she's not wrong to feel that way. Like there is something, and she does and she ends up following him to Crime Alley to get more info. Which again, look, this is before the internet, so you had to do some legwork when it came to stuff like that. Apparently Alfred is just terrible at keeping Bruce's secret in this movie because, like, you would think he would just, like, it was like, oh, back Miss Vale, we're gonna be here for quite a while. Like you think he would be used to it by now, like, coming up with lies for random chicks that Bruce sleeps with. It's like, oh yeah, right. no, Mr. Wayne is right, we're gonna be out of town.
Yeah, that was like a pretty. You think they'd have a better system worked out? Like, no, they're
right? Like, so Alfred's great at a lot of things. No disrespect to Alfred. Secret keeping is not one of them in this movie.
No, not at all. Throws Bruce right under the bus.
No, he really does. Like, I'm surprised he's not fired by the end of the movie. So they cut to this press conference. And this is after the the big reveal, which was great, by the way. I'm kind of skipping ahead. I don't know if I took all the right notes, but like the Joker reveal where he shoots Grissom, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote down. I thought that I thought that was the reveal was great. I thought it worked well. I thought there were like some great one-liners.
Oh yeah.
By Nicholson. Oh, I thought the makeup over the Joker makeup worked great.
Yeah.
In terms of, when he still had the other makeup on before he, reveals what has happened to him in terms of his look now. But again, one of my notes here was that, like, other than playing cards, like, why does he do these jokes and gags?
He's really committed to the gimmick. He's like, all right, well, I look like a clown now. I can't stop laughing. I got a permanent smile. Let's run with this. Like, I'm talking multicolored, props. There were so many props in this movie. Everything from the walkie-talkies to, like, he had his own Joker copter at one point.
Oh, there's, and isn't that one of the lines in the film later on? Like, where does he get these wonderful toys? Like, that was another one. That's from this movie, right?
Yeah. But it's Joker asking that about Batman. But Joker has a lot of toys. Like there's like a Joker mobile in there at one point. I'm surprised these didn't get made into toys.
Maybe they did.
I mean, some of them, but I don't remember. Maybe some of them might have.
But he does have a lot of props.
Mm-hmm. But the press conference where it's like the mob guys kind of explain to that, like, oh, I've taken over for Grissom until he's around because they don't want it to get out there that Grissom's dead. And then you had like these mimes that show up. So it's just like it's a crazy elaborate shootout with Joker kind of revealing himself, very dramatic fashion. But it's
right,
like, that must be interesting how he gets his henchmen, because it's like not only are you going to perform this hit, but you have to do so while performing mime actions. So it's like I don't know where he found some of these guys.
Like, did he think he found some guys and then sent them to be circus performers, or did he like, I only want henchmen who are also circus performers?
It's like, all right, guys, I signed you up for this clinic on the weekend. It's just, just because we want the theme to be right.
Right.
Put a flyer up on a telephone.
Lewis, you're going to be a mime. Carl, you're going to learn how to juggle. Carl. like, yeah, it is very.
It's not that hard. You just pretend to make a wall. You
Right.
can figure it out.
Oh no, there's a wall.
One of the
up there.
things I couldn't figure out is though, like, with all of this going on and the mob stuff and Grissom, and then after after the press conference, it was like, but why does the Joker care about Batman? It's not like he was doing this press conference and something happened and Batman intervened.
I mean, I guess he blames Batman for dropping him into the acid.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's just, I don't know. It seemed like there was something like a piece missing, because it seemed like, all right, he's the Joker now. He goes after Grissom, and then I don't know. I just felt like I was missing something in terms of the turn to take out the bat.
I guess if someone pushed me in a vat of something, I would
also he killed a guy by like throwing a feather, like a quill pen, right into his jugular.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Like, is that a thing that happens in real life? I doubt it.
I don't know.
And also, like, Bruce is there in person as all this is going on for some reason.
Right.
It's just like a weird coincidence. He also gets shot in the arm, or doesn't flinch or pretend to be hurt. I guess maybe because he's just so surprised that Jack Napier is alive. It really catches him off guard. I don't know. It was just I wasn't sure what that scene was all about, but it was a little odd to me. But yeah, not only is the Joker like kind of fixated on Batman, he really wants to bang Vicky Vale throughout this whole movie.
Yeah. Joker's.
doesn't?
Yeah, Joker's really horny for Vicky Vale.
Right? Like, he's, really good. And by the way, a lot of these outdoor scenes, like the press conference, everything is like in this one block of the city. Gotham is apparently a very small town.
Yeah. Those are the things that make it feel like, that it's obvious it's, shot on a lot.
Yeah, it was shot over in Pinewood Studios in London.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe that's where they shot a majority of it. Interesting that they cut to the newscast, which by the way, news anchor dialogue in a lot of these movies rarely comes off as very convincing. Like
Jim Gardner.
Say what?
So there are no Jim Gardners. That's
Philly.
6 ABC Philly
inside
reference.
Philly reference for you there.
The anchor that begins to laugh though is great.
Yeah.
Like her performance, she just goes for it.
She kind of sounds like Trisha Takanawa from Family Guy. Tom, I'm standing out here in front of Gotham Square where the Joker has just killed people. Has that kind of delivery. Interesting when they showed the pictures of the models that were killed. They immediately put the Joker faces on the pictures of the dead models right away. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if that was something they did deliberately or if Joker hijacked the news feed right off the bat. But that was just, the part I'm talking about where they show tragedy has struck the fashion world today, but they showed the pictures of the models. They immediately have the Joker faces. We don't have the before and after look, which is a little odd.
We're showing you them dead.
Yeah,
they've died like this. I like how there's no explanation how Napier, how Joker, other than what we know of him, his only experience with any type of chemicals is that he fell into a vat of one. Mm-hmm. How he can make his Joker formula. There's no scene where he hires a scientist or does this or that.
Yeah.
But then when Bruce is looking at the police file, it says aptitudes include chemistry.
Yeah, so I guess that's supposed to explain his backstory, that apparently he's a brilliant chemist as well.
Who was working for a mobster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically all he was doing was shaking down police informants,
right?
But
once he made that transformation, he knew that he had to commit to the bit.
Yeah,
it's I've been sitting on this laughing gas for years. This is perfect. Now's the time. But yeah,
I like the Adam West Batman style newspaper spinning that happened
yeah.
right after this.
Oh yeah, it was very very much like an old school like gag.
Yeah.
Interesting that Joker also was able to hijack the broadcast. I feel like that's something straight out of the comics. Like, could you imagine if that happened? Not even today, but even like 30 years ago, if like Saddam Hussein back in the day like took control of like CNN or something.
Oh yeah, has anything like that's just like a comic book or movie supervillain thing, you know?
Yeah.
And nowadays there's like 10 million streaming services, so I have no idea how they would even like hijack a feed. And
Just like Ring. They would like they take over the Ring now. Did you see that?
I did see that, but it's just that's purely
And apparently,
movie.
and no one in the newsroom knew where the freaking feed was coming from.
Yeah, no one.
No.
Yeah, they just operate the
No.
cameras. Come on.
And they don't cut it. They don't just like cut it. It's just,
Yeah.
oh, well, we'll just go to commercial when this guy's done.
Right.
Let it roll. Let it roll. Maybe it's saying something important.
Also, Jim, speaking to your point about like them, Bruce going through like Napier's background and learning that he was into art and chemistry was like stuff that he was into growing up. By the way, again, I realize that like this is pre-internet. Obviously, you had to do some legwork in order to, but like these are confidential files, and like I get that Bruce has a lot of money, but like was it Alfred that went out and got these files? Like does Alfred have like a guy in like the police department? Like
Wasn't there something like that where he sent Alfred out to get the file? Like they think they did have some type of in.
Like they must have had like an informant somewhere, like a Huggy Bear or some type of character,
Yep.
So
and then like what is the museum scene? The first real where you really get to see the Joker. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Go wild.
Oh, how long have you been sitting on that one?
Look, there's so many good lines in that scene. And that's the scene.
Well, I mean, half of it is a Prince music video, which is great, by the way.
Yeah. But like the juxtaposition of murdering people and just like silly type of vandalism.
Yeah, he's just making pranks.
Right.
Just
and then like he says,
I like to prank people. But
I didn't remember this line, but at one point he says, "I make art until someone dies." Why? What does that mean?
Because he's crazy.
I make art until someone dies.
That's the thing, man. Nicholson is like one of those guys where like I look at guys like him and like David Lee Roth and like Dwayne Johnson. There's a certain amount of guys out there who just have enough swagger where they can say stuff and it sounds cool and you have no idea what it means. And if it was anyone else saying it, you'd be like, okay, what are you talking about, you dork? But like it's just, again, they've got that kind of like confidence where it's like, yeah, right on. Yeah, you make art till someone dies. Okay.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. But then the line when he does go, "Do I look like I'm joking?" Yeah. Like it works.
Yeah.
It's not corny. It's not. It totally works when he says it.
It's kind of weird. Like we have a lot of scenes of Joker in sort of like the makeup that's supposed to make him look normal, but it's like, why does he care about looking normal at this point? Like who's he doing that for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that was the whole thing. Nicholson was like, all right, look, you put me in the stupid grin. I don't want to be in this face paint the entire time. Maybe that was it. Yeah. But I also heard that they were just like layers and layers upon, so I don't know. So, but yeah, the museum scene was interesting. It was a pretty decent car chase. You know, the Batmobile in that movie looks great. To this day, it still looks great. It's I think it was like a modified Corvette. That's kind of what it looked like. All the gadgets on it are really cool. Like even like the shields and the autopilot and the rocket boost are pretty wild to see.
Yeah, and that was like a big toy too.
Oh,
like
oh yeah, I had it.
Huge. And I thought, I mean, I don't know, like, I would write down when certain things showed up in the movie, but the Batmobile first shows up like an hour and 7 minutes in. So it like takes a while till we get to there, you know, but I think the payoff is worth it, you know, like 10 years old, you're sitting there and you're like is Batman going to get in a car? And then like it shows up and it is awesome.
It looks great.
It stops right in front of him and it's got a shield, you know, so people won't steal his hubcaps.
Right?
Yeah.
Jason Todd.
Yeah, I think it's cool. It looks cool.
It looks great. The design holds up.
Cool.
It really does.
Yeah. I agree.
Now,
and I like it looks like a car. It doesn't look like, you know, compared to some other ones, I like that it doesn't look totally like a military vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks like a sleek type of, you know. Yeah. Ride.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you could tell the thing was not moving very fast on set. So it's like they did their best to make it look like it was going, but like there are some parts where it's like you can tell it was really really moving slowly, but like they did their best with it. I like the fact that it's like in many ways he had a self-driving car at one point, which I feel like we're kind of just getting that now. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, we're just about. I mean, there are a lot of companies that are starting to use them, and I just heard about another company that has like a shuttle service, and in like their parking lots that are like low pedestrian traffic, they're going to start using all self-driving vehicles.
Yeah. So hey, Bruce Wayne was there first. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean the chase scene was cool, and even in the alleyway where they were trying to escape from some of the goons, I was kind of curious, like when they shot Batman at one point, you know, when he was trying to get Vicky Vale out of that, and the other guys kind of pulled him down and shot him, like did it actually knock him out for a little bit, or was he faking it? That I couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe he was trying to distract them so Vicky could get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, because of the suit and you know, and everything, it's impossible to know, you know, what exactly was going on. But I thought he was doing it more of a distraction, I think.
Yeah, because we've seen it earlier in the movie that he got shot.
But the chase scene, the one with the Joker's purple and green cars and everything, in terms of talking about all his toys, all the Joker's toys and whatnot. Like, one of the things I thought is like, man, that guy loves a theme. Like, why go to all that trouble? Like, all right, you took Grissom out, and now you're focusing on, you know, Batman, and you're doing it in like a really showy way.
And where does his budget come from? I mean, I don't know how much the mob is making in this town, but like he's really putting a lot into the gimmick.
Right. Hey, we're going to get all these chemicals into all these products, and we're going to just terrorize the city. All right? And also, I'm going to need you to get a couple of cars, and I'm going to need you to paint them purple and green.
Also, can you paint my face on the helicopter?
Yeah. It's like, Jack, I just bought this sedan.
Shut up and doing it. I'm in charge. Dude, I will kill you. I will fry you to death with this joy buzzer. Don't ask me how it works.
Yeah. But then, after this though, one of the times where like the production value, we talked about the oil paintings early on, like the Batmobile driving through the woods, like looks bad. Like it looks like a B movie, poor quality. Like I thought that scene through the woods did not look good. Well, and also, where were those woods?
Right. I guess he lives on the outskirts of Gotham.
Yeah. And it's not just like, it's heavily wooded. Like that was creepy forest woods.
Like how far is his commute into the city?
I don't know.
You know, does it take him like a half hour to get there?
Probably.
I guess,
Solid solid 45-minute commute.
Right?
Depending on which lights he catches.
Yeah, they definitely sped up the film to make the Batmobile look like it was going faster than it was actually going.
Yeah. Sure.
But it worked. And also, even with that escape, like, why? I don't understand why he would take Vicky to the cave. You know what I mean? Like, that seemed like kind of a weird beat. Like, like she says, even in the scene, she's like, you could have just given this information to the press. Like, why are you bringing me here? But then he's like, there's something else that you have that I want. And then it just, like, kind of cuts to black. And I guess, like, did he give her a sedative? And I'm like, bro, did Batman just Bill Cosby Vicky Vale? Like, what happened?
Stop. And yeah. I don't know.
Like, like, did he knock her out and then, like, have his way with her? Like, it was just, like, it was so weird. I had no idea what was going on, even to this day.
Yeah, the two things about that, like, every time she goes to get close to him and he, like, moves away quickly, I thought was very, like, very, very odd. But yeah, there's something else you have that I want. I mean, I know we know that he's talking about the film because she might have taken a picture of him without the mask.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it is.
That's right. I forgot about that bit because I think she
awfully suggestive and rapey. It's like you have something else I want.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, because she checked her film her camera the next day and there was no film.
Right.
All right. That makes sense.
He wants the film, but the way he says it is very. It is very suggestive and played that way.
And even like the way the music cues, like it suggested that they had this big romantic moment. That was a really weird beat.
I agree. That was odd.
Yeah. So, the Joker shoots a lot of TVs in this movie. It's like every other scene he's shooting a TV, or like it's like how many TVs is he going through as he's like painting all these cars and the chopper? It's like I don't know who's doing the budget there, but like
I like that we get more Bruce. What'd you say?
I would say, what did they use for that?
I don't know. I like that we get more Bruce Wayne in glasses.
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
And by the way, Alfred is like kind of seems insistent on that, like that Bruce should be telling her the truth because she's so persistent. And I'm just saying, like they've been out on like what, a date, maybe two.
Yeah.
Like this is moving really quickly. This relationship.
There are a lot of odd things in this with the two of them because, like at the beginning, he meets them in the beginning at the casino, and he's kind of funny, kind of charming. Mm-hmm. Then they have the weird long table thing, but then it's very sweet with Alfred. But then she's clearly drunk in the manor. Mm-hmm. Then he has the odd interactions with her as Batman that we just talked about. And then this next scene, he pushes her and tells her to shut up.
That was great.
It's like I want to tell you I'm Batman so badly that I'm going to push you and shut up.
Yes.
I thought it was so.
You got to keep your pimp pants strong, Trim.
Well, I didn't know if they were trying to say that like it was. To me, I couldn't tell if it came across as like his Batman aggressiveness coming out as Bruce Wayne, or if they were trying to say that this isn't the playboy billionaire Bruce Wayne that you might have heard about in something else. Like this is a guy who is a billionaire who was raised by the butler and is like socially awkward and doesn't know how really to interact.
That's how I took it.
Right.
Maybe.
But it seems it seems that Bruce Wayne is not the same, funny, charming Bruce Wayne. Like I don't think it was like consistent in terms of what they were going for. I thought that was a really odd scene where he pushes her.
I feel like at times Alfred likes Vicky more than Bruce does.
Oh, I definitely think Alfred likes Vicky for Bruce more than Bruce does.
Oh, for sure. He's like he's like an old like Jewish mother. He wants him to put a ring on it instantly.
I agree. Al, hearing bells.
Exactly. Towards the end of that scene where Bruce goes over and he's trying to tell Vicky who he is. He goes over to Vicky's apartment, which, by the way, has to be one of the biggest apartments for a photojournalist than I've ever seen. Like, that is a huge space. Like, very luxurious apartment.
Yeah.
I don't know how she's affording that on a photographer's salary. Let's be honest.
No, it looks great. I mean, she's been in Gotham for like a week, and that place, like, there were no boxes. Like, that place looked lived in.
Yeah. She's been in there for a while. Like, she might have more than one residence. We don't know. It's interesting how, like, when he was trying to tell, like, the secret, towards the end, Vicky's like, hey, it's okay, you can tell me. And I'm like, does she think that like Bruce is coming out to her? Does she think that like Bruce is trying to tell her he's gay?
I don't know what she thought. I mean, I don't know if she was just trying to be supportive.
I guess.
I wrote it. I don't know. To me, I didn't understand. Like, I know Alfred is shipping Bruce and Vicky pretty hard.
So hard.
But they slept together once.
Right.
It's been a week. Like, what? This is, like, huge. You're Batman. Like, you have a secret identity, and
it's a big step in the relationship.
Yeah, and it's been like a week, and he's just like, gotta tell you, it seems so bizarre as to, why it only seemed like a week had passed, and not like months, or they didn't even seem that they had developed some type of deep bond.
I mean, it was a glorified one-night stand, let's be honest.
Right. And like to think that you would have to trust somebody, like a lot of trust. It just it seemed like so odd that it was happening like right now. Like that was the move. Like, we want Bruce to reveal that he's, Batman to her, and like, why try to force that type of connection now? Why couldn't, I don't know. It seemed odd.
Right, but while all this is happening, she gets a knock at her door, and it's the Joker there with his goons, like straight up at her front door, which is definitely creepy. I mean, it makes sense that he's obsessed with her, that he'd figure out where she lives. But
right.
I'm curious, like, what was Bruce's plan when he confronted the Joker in the apartment? Because, like, he clearly, like, did he realize that he was going to get shot in that exact place where he placed that? Because he got, like, a metal plate that he put under his shirt.
Right, that was just like a serving, looked like I don't know, like some type of serving tray or something that was in her apartment.
Like, he seemed pretty confident that was bulletproof.
Yeah, I just thought it always, like, as a kid, and even watching it again, I just thought it worked. It just seemed cool. Like, it didn't totally make sense that, like, that would work out, that Napier would shoot him and leave him there so he could, like, disappear. But the talk between the two of them works well. To see Bruce playing that type of amped up Bruce, I was just glad he was getting in somebody else's face and not pushing Vicky anymore.
It did seem like a weird beat. The whole, like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like,
yeah, but that was one of those lines that, like, this movie for no matter what had, like, great lines that people said all the time.
Oh, for all
the time. And that was another. You want to get nuts, Jack? Let's get nuts.
Yeah.
And this scene in particular had a bunch of them. Never rub another man's rhubarb.
You're right.
Right.
That's hilarious.
That was another like just ridiculous line.
Right.
And the whole, this is the first time he says isn't this the first time that he says dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
It is.
Yeah. Which I thought that sounded so cool as a kid, but like hearing it now,
it makes no sense. It's another one of those David Lee Roth type lines.
There's no connection as to why Napier would ever like he doesn't seem to be the type of person that would say something like that. He seems to be like a no nonsense, like criminal involved in whatever part of the organization Grissom has him involved in. Like that seems like, I mean, so pseudo poetic, like fanciful.
It's like he needs a calling card. You know?
Yeah,
he's like in the Wet Bandits, basically.
Right. Napier doesn't seem like the type of person that would have a calling card like that.
Right.
You know? Because it's revealed that it's something he said, before, but
I mean, the let's get nuts thing, I feel like that's almost like less of a Bruce Wayne Batman move, and that's just Michael Keaton being like, look, I'm only getting one scene with Nicholson where I'm not in a mask. I really need to do something. So.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine acting against, like, Nicholson. I mean, the energy that guy seems like he would be giving out.
Or just stealing the scene, like, anytime he's there.
Yeah, so you would have to be up to, an 11 or a 12 on a 1 to 10 scale to just be in that, be in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it worked. I mean, it didn't seem too far out of character. It seemed like a calculated risk on Bruce Wayne's part. I thought Keaton, played it well.
I guess, yeah. No, I mean, I guess he had to figure out doing something because, like, the Joker was there and, like, he didn't really plan for it, so he had to figure something out. But he also, like, ran away after faking being killed. And I'm surprised that the Joker didn't try to do anything to Vicky. He just left her just a present. Like, he didn't try to kidnap her or anything. It was just, it was an odd scene.
Mm-hmm. It was. I agree. But, it was, I'm curious. It's times like, it seems like that I'm curious, like, how did that come about? Like, how was it first scripted? Like, what were the rewrites? Like, did they try it a couple different ways, where there
also like what got cut to make room for that scene? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, why did they feel like that scene was like necessary? Like, what did it establish?
But I guess the dance with the devil in the pale moonlight kind of makes Bruce put two and two together. It was like, oh, the guy who killed my parents said that.
Right.
So that kind of, you get into that subplot with it. But yeah, Vicky like almost immediately figures out that he's Batman after like doing some research and finding out that his parents were shot in front of him. So she kind of puts two and two together right away.
One thing I will say is the Napier being the one that killed his parents and he realized it, like, doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's a little on the nose.
It's way too, coincidental. It's way too neat. It's way too, hey, here's this guy. I was involved in taking him down. He became the Joker. Like, you already have, you already have him being the nemesis. He wants to get after Batman, and you're having to deal with him because now he's become obsessed with the girl you're seeing, the woman you're seeing, Vicky Vale. It's like, oh, and also he killed your parents.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers going on there. Probably, like, you don't really need that to overcomplicate the relationship.
Yeah, it just seems like you're trying to shoehorn in like too many things. Like he's already, the Joker is already the villain. He is already killing people. He is already in an antagonistic relationship with Batman. Like, why do we need that on top of it? Like,
oh, I like that though. Like, to me, that's the point of Batman, the revenge of whether or not he's going to go through and kill him, or he's just going to beat him up and give him to the cops. Like, that's the it factor.
Yeah, because there was a moment where, like, he said, he's like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, which is pretty crazy. Not very Batman-like, but, like, hey, like, in that situation, like, you kind of get it. But, I'm kind of with you on that one, Jim. It's like, there's a lot of layers going on in there already, and I think they put in stuff like that because the studio is probably thinking, like, look, we don't know if we're going to get a sequel to this movie. We don't know if this is going to be a success or not. Let's just go for broke, because there's no guarantees that there are going to be any sequels or this is long before the age of cinematic universes. So
Yeah.
they figured this might be one and done. So let's go all out with it.
Right. One of the other, this is in my notes now because I just realized it around this point in time, but this has come up quite a few times recently in watching movies that I loved as a kid and like actors that I idolized or performances I idolized and thinking about them and watching them, as I'm older now but Keaton is 38 in this.
Is he really?
So I'm like, as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, wow, so Michael Keaton doing this is 2 years younger than I am now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem a little bit old as far as like a Batman origin movie. Although this really wasn't an origin story, but like it kind of was.
Right.
So Vicky figures out, puts two and two together immediately, and apparently, which was crazy, Alfred just lets her right in the cave.
He really likes her.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Bruce isn't going to do it. He's not going to reveal himself. Just, you can wait in the cave.
He's like, oh yeah, no, fine, come right in. Which at that point, I'm surprised Bruce. If I'm Bruce, I'm like, all right, well, you're fired. Clearly, like, what the hell, man? You just, I'm paying you this amount of money to help me out, and you just let her right in the cave. Yeah, hit the bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have this kind of nice moment, where he explains it's like, I'm doing this because no one else can, which I'm like, why isn't like the National Guard stepping up and getting involved in this? But regardless, I'm thinking way too hard into this because clearly the police force is a joke at this point. They're not doing anything.
And then I guess part of the Joker's plan is he wants to ruin the 200th anniversary of Gotham.
It's like the bicentennial celebration.
Yeah.
And somehow he gets a parade float in there with just no opposition, by the way.
I think that's one of those things that seemed like somebody had an idea. Like Tim Burton, someone had an idea, one of the writers, where it would be cool if the Joker had a parade float and we could do this, that, and that. All right, now let's work backwards.
And he had he had huge like Macy's Day, parade, balloons filled with gas.
Right.
It just that almost feels like a Cesar Romero, Adam West plot right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that's straight out of the old series. But
right.
And again, it goes back to that earlier question, like how did he get all this stuff? Like the parade float, balloons, his freaking helicopter. The helicopter really trips me up. In case you haven't figured that out by now.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you even start?
Like that keeps me up at night. Like how did he get this damn chopper? But when Batman suits up, he goes to Axis Chemical and blows up the entire chemical plant with one grenade, presumably killing a lot of people. Like
yeah, but it would seem like
again not very Batman-like. He's typically not much of a killer, so that was.
Yeah, I mean, usually, like in the comic books and other things, Batman is set up as not someone that kills, but there's nothing in this movie in terms of this Batman that he has like a no killing code.
That's true. Yeah, no, he never comes out and says that.
Yeah, there's nothing that's ever said like explicitly like I'm Batman, I don't kill, I don't do this or that.
Yeah, no
and
guns.
then clearly the case because
Yeah, no, he goes for it. Like
he does that.
He actually tries to shoot at the Joker at one point from the Batwing. Pretty sure those were real bullets. And
that's the other. So yeah, after Batman kills a bunch of people by blowing up the plant.
The Joker is out. He's on the parade float. And again, I wonder when they shot this. If I'm trying to think what the Prince song, "Trust." That was the song that was playing as they were doing that. I don't know if that was the song they were playing on set, because I'm trying to think of because Nicholson was dancing to it the entire time, and it kind of lined up with the music.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very possible he might have been dancing to something completely different.
True.
Or nothing at all, just like doing the movement.
Just a lot of arms, a lot of arm movements.
I really like a lot of this movie.
Yeah.
But at the point where Alfred just lets her into the Batcave, and looking just to go back a little bit, looking at my notes that I have, like you said, Alfred just lets Vale into the Batcave, and then Vale's like, that. This is where the movie starts to just get silly. Yes. I think.
Yeah.
Because Vale's like, I loved you since I met you. Then it goes into he kills a bunch of people, and then the next part with the parade float, the Joker has now terrorized the city.
Yes.
Murdered people. Mm-hmm. They have been on edge because if they used a certain number of products or if they used certain things, people haven't slept, showered, and then he starts throwing money from a float, and everybody is like, I don't give a shit.
No. There are no cops there. No cops even trying to arrest him.
No, it's like bonkers. It's like, so wait, like, did you guys forget the past couple of days?
Right, like he's murdered people on air.
Right,
hijacked a news station somehow.
Yeah, but everyone's coming running in for the money. I thought that was like crazy.
Yeah,
it was just.
We get to see the Batwing, which looked really cool. That was a cool toy as well back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Batwing had that gadget at front of it that clips the balloons. I'm like, did he have that installed just for that purpose? Like, what else would you use that for?
Yeah, there's no other reason.
It's up there with bat shark repellent. Like, it's preposterous.
So Bruce, what do you want in your bat plane? It's got to be aerodynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I might need to eject from it.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and also I'd like a big pair of scissors on the front.
Right. And guns, lots of guns.
At this point in my notes, I wrote, "Who do you trust?" because of the Trust Prince song, and then I put, "These Gothamites deserve this."
Pretty much, yeah. They kind of had it coming. Let's be honest.
And I do love the way Nicholson says, "Those are my balloons."
He's so sad about it. He's emotionally attached to the balloons.
It does set up that very nice shot of the bat wing over the moon to create the, like the symbol.
Yeah, he stops to pose in the moonlight just for a second. Like,
yeah.
Right. He poses mid-flight. Apparently the Joker is so distraught, he straight up shoots Bob right there.
Oh yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bob, his number one guy. By the way, little trivia fact: Bob the Goon was the inspiration for Kevin Smith using the name Silent Bob for his character.
Really?
Yes, he's admitted to that.
I didn't know. Wild.
Yeah, he got the name Bob from Bob the Goon from this one. Bob the Goon had an action figure, by the way.
No.
It was true. I remember it. I didn't have it as a kid, but like I remember like Bob had his own, because he was the only goon, like one of like the Joker's goons who had a name.
As soon as we're done here, I'm going on eBay.
Oh, it's up to Google it.
I will.
It's Tracy. What's his face? Who plays Bob? Tracy Walter. Who I think he got the role because he was just a buddy of Nicholson's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jack was like, all right, I'll do your movie. We got to get Tracy a role, though.
He doesn't have to say much.
They're like, fine, whatever, just be the Joker.
Then another one of the Joker's gags, he has that comically long gun.
Yeah.
The Batwing tries to machine gun him.
Yeah, he was straight up trying to murder the Joker right there in the street. And then I'm wondering, like, how did that gun, which, I mean, basically, like, it looked like it had maybe one bullet in there. It looked like a shotgun. I don't know how that was enough to take down the jet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even as a kid, I was like, I feel like you would need a lot more to bring down the Batwing than just that one gunshot.
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I mean, his car has the Batmobile has all those shields. You would think there'd be some better protection on the.
Also, how does Bruce not hit the Joker with all those bullets? Like, he had like a targeting computer straight out of Star Wars, just locked in right in on him. I don't know. That was a little bit wacky. But by the way, good thing no one else was like walking or driving on the street where the Batwing crashed, because he takes out a bunch of cars. I mean, it's clearly a model, but
yeah. A lot of Gotham citizens, died in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's
responsible for a lot of death.
Let's be honest. There may be 30 people tops who live in this town, because there's nobody. Clearly, there's not a lot of people in this city.
Well, no one wants to penetrate the woods, apparently, on the outside.
That too.
And then my favorite, every 80s movie had to have ninjas.
Yes.
And it's at this point in time, ninjas finally.
Yeah,
finally
that was like straight up Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the guy comes out and they have the one ninja guy. I meant to say this earlier, but like he comes out and like kind of does his thing, and like Batman just takes him out with one punch. It was a funny beat for a second, but So I think right here is like where I think they had said that they had made some significant changes to the script as far as how the movie was going to end. Because they go into Gotham Cathedral, which apparently has been abandoned for quite some time, yet is very well lit in there, by the way. Because you can see everything that's going on in there. But I was just wondering, like, so the Joker takes Vicky and leads her up the stairs, because I guess that's where his the helicopter, which is my favorite thing in the movie, is going to come pick her up.
Well, I also feel like this part, it doesn't surprise me if there were a lot of changes or cuts, or if they were getting like over budget.
Oh yeah.
Because at this point it seems like some of the camera work starts to break down. And I'm not talking about like the shots, like the cinematography, like the actual guys on set holding the camera. Like it seems like it starts to get sloppy, like things are like shakier. It almost feels like they're rushing to get it done.
Yeah.
In the filming of this last little bit here.
Like, I don't know what the original like script called for, what the ending of this movie was going to be, but they were definitely trying to figure out like, okay, how can we wrap this up? But and also one of the things that cracked me up, especially when the Joker and Vicky, they got to the top of the tower, or at least when I should say when Batman got up there. Apparently there were a bunch of henchmen just waiting in the wings, which I don't know how they got up there. Were they waiting up there this whole time?
Did they know that's? I guess that was the plan.
I guess, because like
right.
You had the ninja guy there, and you also had that giant black dude who nearly beat up Batman before Batman had to straight up murder this guy.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Did Batman just kill that guy?
He did. He threw him it wasn't even by accident. Like he threw him off the ledge.
Yeah, this Batman, he doesn't use guns, but he kills.
Yeah. He really kills. But this big dude, like I don't know if he was on like Bane Venom or something, but he was like messing Batman up for a while there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But and then there was one point where like Joker was kind of slow dancing with Vicky on like the balcony, and I was like,
right.
I think it was implied that he drugged her at some point, but
yep.
It was never really like explicitly said.
Yeah, Vicky doesn't have a whole lot of agency in this movie. Like a lot of things happen to Vicky.
Yeah. She doesn't have a lot of control over her situation.
Right.
But then, and like like we mentioned earlier, when Batman finally starts fighting him and starts punching him, he straight up says, "I'm going to kill you," and then just kind of reveals that like he doesn't really tell Joker that he's Bruce Wayne, but he does say that he killed his parents, and he's like, it's like I've killed a lot of people's parents. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, that's what I thought was odd, because he doesn't say he's Bruce Wayne, and the Joker's line is, "I was a kid when I killed your parents." How does he know that?
That's a good point.
Like, Like, does he really go around murdering people's parents when he was young? Like, it's like, oh, my parent killing days was when I was like 17 to 22. Batman doesn't reveal who he is. He doesn't say, the exact situation. And Joker says, I was a kid when I killed your parents.
Right.
That just seems...
It seems very specific.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's possible he might have remembered, I remember that one time years ago, about 20 years back, where I shot that rich couple, but let the kid go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
like you think they would... Wait. Bruce?
like, oh crap, he was the Wayne kid.
Yeah.
That explains where he gets the toys.
Yeah. And the other, we didn't mention it, but with when we do get the flashback scene, they walk out of the theater, and I know in other Batman things, it's like they went to see Zorro or whatever. I think the poster from the flashback, they were seeing the musical sensation Footlight Frenzy.
Oh.
And my question was, they walk out of the theater, and Bruce still has a full bucket of popcorn.
Full bucket.
God, is there anything worse than your kids just bugging you for popcorn at the movies and then they don't eat it?
Right?
That's bullshit.
Hey, look, man, the Waynes, they have a lot of money. They're like, yeah, you want popcorn? We'll buy you the whole theater. How about that?
Yeah. And he gets popcorn coming and going.
I'm saying that when we get
it's the
popcorn...
Waynes, man. They have all kinds of popcorn money. They don't care.
I hate to burst your bubble, but that's exactly what we do. We get a large popcorn, and it's refillable. So you refill it right before you leave the theater.
They're rich. They go, hey, that's how they got rich. That's how the Waynes got rich. They always refill their bucket on the way out.
That was their...
They sell it on the way out. Yeah.
That's how they made their fortune.
That is.
Popcorn kernels.
Wow.
That is. Another thing about the end scene, when the fall and then the quick stop, I'm pretty sure that would have killed Vicky. I don't think a human body can do that. Well,
even before that, there was that beat where it's like, they Batman punches the Joker and he falls over like the edge of the roof. The Joker somehow manages to reach up and pull both Batman and Vicky over.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has 3 hands. Did you know that? That was also a result of the ass.
See, the third hand comes out. See that? Yeah, that must have been on the deleted scene because I missed that cut.
Oh yeah.
Like that was crazy.
Yeah. Well, they have that great gag where Batman just pulls the third hand right off.
Yeah. But I mean, strangely enough, like Batman does not actually kill the Joker in this one. He just kind of ties him up to the the gargoyle, and just kind of like, you fell to your death kind of accidentally, so that one's kind of on you. So it's definitely like it's manslaughter, but it's not quite. I mean, Jim, you're the attorney in this one, so you could probably answer that a lot better than I could.
Yeah, no, I'd say manslaughter. Let's go with manslaughter. It's clear that no good.
If I could get your legal expertise on this one.
It's clear that no good is going to come from the end of the situation. But
he did not build the gargoyle.
He didn't. He didn't.
The mortar to hold the...
I will say the end shot, though, of the Joker and the laugh box,
that was creepy.
It is good. It's creepy and it's good.
It still haunts you when you think
it works. That really works.
Well, his reveal in the beginning when it sounds like Mark Hamill now, like doing the laugh thing. Mm-hmm. It's 2 totally different ones that just still echo when you think about it.
Yeah, he had that weird voice box that was like kind of still going on when they found him. But Jim, you do have a good point about like the fall. I feel like that would because it was such like a sudden stop on the grappling hook. I felt like that would like either like rip Batman's arm out of his socket or something. Something would have happened there, but it's again, limited budget at that point. They had to figure out some way to have them survive that whole deal.
movie through movie magic.
Yeah, you just kind of go with it. And then that's, I mean, that kind of leads to the end of the movie where there's the unveiling of the bat signal, which I thought was pretty cool. I think it was implied that, like, were they trying to suggest that Vicky quit her job at the end of it to be with Bruce?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure
because she had this weird goodbye moment with Knox, but I didn't get where was she going? I guess it was implied that she was either moving out of town or quitting her job because she was gonna just be with Bruce now, and it was left kind of ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was kind of the end of the movie. They had a lot of cool moments, and it ends with this cool shot of the rooftop, and you see him in the distance staring at the bat signal. It's the score's going off, and that's it. That's the end of the movie.
It's a great final Batman type shot.
Yeah, I waited around after credits, but still there was no
end credits. No end credits in '89. No. That's a bummer.
Yeah, no post credit scenes, but
I mean, overall, I think I think a lot of it works. I think watching it now in 30 years later, Keaton's performance, I think, still holds up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like his Bruce Wayne. I like his Batman. It's just you get used to it now with things happening faster and with
Sure.
the action sequences. I do like that it's not a lot of quick cuts. Like some of the action movies now, whether or not it's Fast and the Furious or the Mission Impossible films, they're great fun, but man, sometimes it's difficult to figure out what's happening. And I know I say, but the cuts are so, quick. And that's been happening for years now. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they talked about how the average length of a scene, how many seconds,
mm-hmm.
has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller now for action films. They're just quicker cuts and quicker cuts, and I like taking time with things sometimes. But yeah, I think Nicholson's performance still holds up in terms of
absolutely. I mean,
his Joker performance.
Like I said, I mean, his casting as the Joker was just a stroke of genius. And throughout most of that, he was just kind of being himself, just turned up to 11. He's just Jack being Jack, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's sadistic,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's unhinged, and there is a joyousness, a creative side to it.
Yeah,
he
says really
that line
funny.
in the museum. He says the line in the museum, I make art until somebody dies. That's meaningless, but it sounds something that a crazy, sadistic, murdery type person would say,
For sure. For sure. He was perfect for it at that time. He crushed it. Absolutely.
Right. And I still think watching it now, I mean, there's still, you can tell it's shot on a set.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the backdrops don't, the Woods one doesn't look great. I think Gotham, I like the look of Gotham. Some of it is still campy enough. I think there's some campy elements in it. I don't think it's too campy to the point where you look at it now and you're like, oh, I can't watch this. It's too campy. But I think there's just enough that you're in a world where a billionaire orphan dresses up, to fight crime. It seems like a ridiculous premise. So a certain amount of ridiculousness is fine, but there's still stakes to it. And I think that a lot of that is owed to Keaton's performance, because I think he comes across as, very genuine and charming. And he does a great job with his character. And the writing, I think, did a great job with writing Bruce. For
sure. I think, this movie was a massive step forward in terms of how the public perceived Batman. I mean, you still had people like, it was just 20 years before where you had, the Adam West people. So there was an entire generation who like that was their Batman.
Right. It was all camp.
Yeah. So like, I'm sure there were a lot of people like at the time who didn't really know what to make of this going into it. But I mean, look, without this, we don't get Batman the Animated Series. This was a major turning point as far as how Batman and how superhero movies were perceived. I mean, it was
right.
It's definitely a classic. It's still very much it is a very watchable movie. Like it's very entertaining. I still enjoy it. It's still my favorite of that series of the four. So a lot of it, I think a lot more holds up than doesn't, honestly, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot I like about Batman Returns. I think once Joel Schumacher took over, it gets too campy then, and a lot of it like just doesn't work and is silly, and they rely too much on like snappy one-liners. And
I agree.
No meat. There's no meat to it, and it doesn't work anymore. Some things that work in comic books don't work in movies. Yeah. It's just.
I agree. Yeah. Although I will say, and people kind of like their heads explode when I say this. I do think of the four movies, I would say the Batman Returns is probably my least favorite of the four.
Oh yeah, what is it about that one?
I just for me, I felt like I feel like people kind of underestimate how cartoony that movie was. And that movie was, to me, that was very campy, but in a much more like weird Tim Burton-y kind of way. It was, to me, it was less of a Batman movie as much as it was a Tim Burton movie.
I mean, sure. I mean,
what presence and everything.
Michelle Pfeiffer dies and then is licked back to life by cats.
Yeah, no, I mean that movie. I just I will say, at least like the Schumacher films, at least they were going for something family friendly, and it definitely resembled Batman. And for me, and just this is my personal thing, it's like, if you're going to give me a cartoon, I'd rather have a light, entertaining cartoon than something that's dark and depressing. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I think the point where they were making Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, it was good that this Batman was made in 1989.
Yeah.
Because I feel like get into the 90s, things, because now movies, comic books and movies are now being affected by things like, even more heavily affected by Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen.
Yeah.
And the movie, the comic book characters are getting more muscly.
Sure.
And more and bigger and more aggressive, and movies, the same thing is happening. So where you have this Batman in 1989 where it's a little bit campy, but you still have a good story and a good script, it works. As you get further into the 90s and you still kind of have like a Val Kilmer and George Clooney, not guys that are like super jacked and ripped.
Kilmer was in pretty good shape during Batman Forever. Like he looked convincing.
Yeah, they're, definitely guys that are in like, amazing shape, but you have other movies that are much darker and grittier, and I think that's what audiences are looking for, and the camp or the concept of like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin I just don't think they sit well and they don't work anymore. But plus, I think for the two of them, they also have a lot of serious like story issues.
For sure.
Like
I will say, I think Batman Forever is a little bit underrated. I feel like sometimes it gets lumped in with Batman and Robin, which kind of went off the rails a little bit. I think that there were still like some serious beats in Batman Forever that I think often get a little bit overlooked, in my opinion. I thought Val Kilmer was a little underrated in his performance, but I mean, look, is it a perfect movie? Of course not. But I if I had to rank the four movies, I would go with Batman '89 first, then Batman Forever, then Batman and Robin, and Batman Returns at the bottom of my list. Unfortunately, that's just That's just me. That's
You don't
my
have to
opinion.
apologize. Live your life.
All right, I'm just saying.
Live your truth, Jack. Live your truth.
I am. I'm trying to explain to you why I come at it from that.
Yeah. No, I that makes sense. That makes sense. I like DeVito's. I like DeVito. I like his performance in Batman Returns. But I'd probably rank them the order in which they came out.
You just like watching them eat a
1, 2,
fish.
3, 4. Yeah, I like watching them eat a fish. Yeah. Of course. And Michelle Pfeiffer looks amazing in that stitched together cat suit.
She does. She was definitely one of the. I would say she was probably the bright point of that movie because I felt like she was a really good Catwoman. Before we finish up here, I did want to point out like the box office on this was really good. Like according to the Wikipedia page, the budget was $35 million. Ended up grossing $411.5 million. That's a pretty solid profit there, especially for the time. So, and like you said, without this movie, we don't get all these other serious movies that follow, and with that darker tone. Let's run down the cast real quick. Obviously, Nicholson, just great. Keaton, really was sort of like the surprise. I think to everybody was sort of surprised at how good he was. Kim Basinger, is that how you say her name?
Basinger.
Basinger.
I don't know how to say her name.
Adina Menzel.
Adele Dazeem.
Kim. She played Vicky Vale. She was good. I mean, she was serviceable in the role. Wouldn't say she was bad. I wouldn't say she was amazing, but like she was good at what she did.
Yeah, I thought, I think she did the best she could with what, she had script-wise.
She had to scream a lot in this movie. A lot of screams.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so like I said, Robert Wall as Alexander Knox, Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. Like I said, he was in all four of them.
Bob saw him on Broadway.
Really?
Yes, in the I'm pretty sure in the revival of in the revival of 1776 in 97 into 98, he was Benjamin Franklin.
Oh,
yeah.
Well then.
Brent Spiner as John Adams.
Oh well, there you go.
Yeah, me if I thought of somebody.
Yeah.
Me.
And
he was a good Franklin.
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned everyone else. I know that there was like an earlier draft of the script that had like a scene with a young Dick Grayson in it, but they ended up scrapping that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think that's a special feature on like the DVD release that I got, where it's like they had like a storyboard animatic of like there was a reference to the Flying Graysons in that one.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of interesting where that would have gone had they included that that early in it, but it's kind of best that they didn't. There was enough going on in this movie where they didn't really need to plant that seed into it.
Yeah, it wouldn't have added anything to it other than a reference,
Right.
It seemed like it would have been a lot just to, oh, hey, here's another character from the comic book.
Right. So yeah, that's it as far as it goes. The one final thing I did want to bring up before we kind of close it up here, there's been like a lot of people online want there to be a Batman Beyond movie made with Keaton coming back as old Bruce Wayne.
Sure, I've seen that.
What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think that'd be great. I mean, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see this, this Batman from Batman '89, 30 years later.
I mean, he's in shape now. Like you're saying about more Jack.
I mean, he could still do it. I mean, the Michael Keaton that was the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely see him being Bruce Wayne, who's passing on the mantle to somebody else. I think that'd be great. I think that
I could even see him as a Batman being Thomas Wayne in a multiverse.
It's tough now with a lot of these movies. I think DC critically, a lot of their movies haven't done well, even though they've made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if they think there's like a market there for a Batman Beyond, but I don't know. I think it would do well.
In terms of the current crop of DC movies, I feel like they need to get their big characters in order before they start making all these other kind of movies. That's my opinion. Although the Joker ended up being really profitable.
Yeah,
I feel like with this idea of there being a Batman Beyond movie at this point, even with Keaton involved, I feel like that's one of those things where I I think people say they want it now, but I wonder if I just feel like there would be such a level of expectation there if you brought him back. I feel like I don't feel like it could compare to the hype that people would build that up as.
Yeah.
And also there's the whole question is like, well, then with Keaton back in this role, is this a sequel to this movie that we're reviewing? Is this a sequel to the '89 movie? It's just, where does that fall in the timeline? It's just, with him being back in this role, I feel like that would confuse people, and I don't know. I feel like that's one of those things that it's probably better left to people's imaginations. It sounds like a good idea on paper. I just don't know if that would make for as good of a movie as people think it would.
I mean, I think if you found a writer who had something to say, look, if you wanted just a Batman Beyond story, watch the cartoon or read a comic book or something along those lines. But if somebody came up with a really good script, and I could see somebody, playing in this same universe with these 4 movies, who cares who played him? He was played by Kilmer and Clooney. You could just say that all these 4 movies are part of
it all happened.
Yeah. And he's now giving up the mantle. But if somebody came up with some type of storyline that I think they had something to say about this character, about the retiring, aging superhero, and somebody new coming in, and certainly if you look on social media and like the different, the OK Boomer is now like a meme, like right. To have like millennial Terry McGinnis and now basically Boomer Batman for the most part.
Yeah,
but if you had some type of social commentary or something to say about these 2 different types of people, whether or not it's in these age groups, in terms of what they've experienced and what the other's experiencing now. One's a billionaire, one, doesn't have a pot to piss in, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And was able to tell a compelling character-driven story within the Batman Beyond type of narrative. I think if you had a great screenwriter with a great idea like that, I think they could. I think it would sell. I think it'd be great. Yeah,
it's interesting to think about. I feel like with all the options right now, with all the streaming networks, which, by the way, I don't think this movie is streaming anywhere at the moment.
No, it isn't. It was removed from DC Universe in July, and it's going to go over to HBO Max once HBO Max is up, which is HBO's new streaming service.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It'll be on there.
Yeah, it might be on HBO Max by the time this podcast goes up. But, yeah, I mean, it's available on digital and DVD and Blu-ray and all kinds of formats. So, it's out there for sure.
I got mine from the local library because I go to the library a lot. So
nice.
A little plug for your local library.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to watch it on TV, and right afterwards came Batman Returns.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Double feature.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, guys, this has been fun. Like, I know we've been talking a lot about this old movie. I'd be down to do this with like other comic book movies or other movies that we enjoy, like classic stuff, whether they were good, bad, indifferent, whatever it was. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys coming on here and sort of making your debut on my show here. I've been doing this I've been doing this thing for a while, and I've wanted to get both of you guys on for quite some time. I don't know if you have anything to plug. I know Jimmy is an attorney in the Wilmington, Delaware area for Ferry Joseph, PA, I believe.
Yeah, that's us. Perry Joseph. No, I don't have anything else to plug. This has been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun watching it. Like I said, I don't really think I sat down and watched it all the way through in one sitting in probably almost 30 years since it came out, and I liked it. I had fun watching it. I had fun taking notes, and thinking about what worked and what didn't, and trying to look at it as a movie, in and of itself, as if I'd never heard of Batman before, and then think about it in context of all the other Batmans, because you said earlier about other, being up with the comic books, and I've read a bunch of Batman stories before, and I've read all the Batman New 52 stories and all the Rebirth and Tom King's run, which just ended with issue 85 on Wednesday, December 18th. Yeah, so I don't have anything. If you want a really good Batman comic book, go get Scott Snyder and Black Mirror, which is it's actually Dick Grayson as Batman in that one, but it's a fantastic Batman story.
Cool.
So,
all right, well, guys,
there you go.
I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know, Jim, you have 2 kids. Bob, you've got 4, which is crazy.
Yeah, stop reminding me. Yeah, it's hard to get anything done.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, that's Bob's one thing in common. Neither of their goons get the job done. I called your kids goons.
Yeah, I got that.
I'm a little punchy.
Yeah. You're about to be punchy.
All right. Well, guys, I know it's getting late. I appreciate you guys doing this, and thanks again.